Congressman Biggs.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff Daniels, one of the things that seems consistent to me in your testimony is when we fail to enforce law, we fail to have deterrence effect, and bad people do bad things. So in that vacuum, I'm wondering if you can talk about how the policies and the failure to enforce the law has created a situation where we see increasing amounts of human trafficking.
Well, when you look at the stats under this current administration compared to where we were in the past, we used to run between 5 and 10% when it comes to border crimes. Right now, we're seeing 40 to 44% increase in our optics and operational tempo. So it's caused a huge increase for us. I will just say this, and I've said this before, and it's going to sound bad, but it comes out the way it is when these transnational organizations, the criminal cartels, have better operational plans, criminal plans at that, and will than our current administration. Obviously, no matter what policy you put in place, this administration has to prioritize and put will with sustained operational plans with secure policies that are sustained policy is going to secure our border. Until we do that in partnership with Congress, you all got to work together. And I promise you, your state governors, your sheriffs around the country, your police chiefs will rally behind you on reasonable consequences and laws.
Mr. Arthur, we've touched lightly on parole policy, but in reality, this administration has changed the actual de facto implication of parole. Previously, numbers I was given was the high was at 24 because parole was meant to be particularized on a case-by-case individual basis. What has changing parole to be, quite frankly, this is being litigated, right? So what does it mean when Secretary Mayorkas is talking about parole by categories?
Very briefly, parole is a very limited authority that Congress has given to DHS that enables them to allow an inadmissible alien into the United States. It can only be granted on a case-by-case basis for significant public benefit or urgent humanitarian reasons. For decades, those terms were defined. Significant public benefit was we had to have a criminal defendant come into trial. Urgent humanitarian reasons were emergency medical treatment. The Biden administration has used that authority to parole 1.437 million people into the United States. Basically, what they've done is they've taken that 24 people a month. In fact, it was actually 7 when shortly before Judge Wetherell in Florida versus United States put the hammer down on Border Patrol agents releasing people on parole. Border Patrol leadership could see the writing on the wall, and 7 people at the entire southwest border were paroled in the month of February. That's how it should be. When you're talking about 1.437 million, it applies a pseudo-legal gloss to what is an inherently illegal system. Congress actually amended the law in '96 in order to tighten the restrictions from the ones that I just mentioned, and the Biden administration is just blowing past those.
And the result has been a pull factor or an incentive to come. That's really how catch and release works now, is through categorization of parole.
That's correct. And that was one of the points that Judge Wetherell made in his Florida decision was the reason that people are coming is because they're getting in. Categorization of parole is a misnomer. You can't have a case-by-case categorization. And in fact, the Biden administration is using parole almost in a mirror image because rather than case-by-case, it's an entire group of people, not significant human, based on the limited factors, but we only keep out the people who, don't meet our factors. This is nothing what Congress said it should be.
Let's shift and let's talk about New York, where Mayor Adams is just beside himself because of the 93,000 illegal aliens that have come into his community, vis-a-vis the number that we've seen come through, let's say Yuma, 1,000 a month, or 1,000 a day, in many days, and Sierra Vista. Talk about the impact. So he has to deal with an impact of 93,000 illegal aliens there. Schools. Let's just talk schools, for instance, in New York City.
So based upon reports that have been issued by the New York City Comptroller's Office, I determined that if 35,000 illegal migrants relocated to New York, it would impose a cost of $440 million on the New York City public school system, just that one school district. We know that 93,000 migrants have made their way to New York. Mayor Adams is asking for $4 billion to basically provide food and shelter and medical services for those individuals. That doesn't even count the educational part of that. But yeah, I mean, it's probably about $1.2 billion just in educational costs. But to break down the cost that Mayor Adams is talking about, he wants $4 billion from the federal government to deal with his migrant issue. That works out to $471.14 per 8.9 million people living in New York. That's 23 $20 bills, one $10 bill, a dime and 4 pennies. This is a huge amount of money. But these are the costs that are being imposed on places all across the United States. Portland, Maine, I was there a few weeks back, is reeling trying to deal with the problem. You talk to anybody on the streets. Denver, Colorado, these aren't border towns. I did an interview this morning with News Nation, and the anchor who was interviewing me finished it up with, every town's a border town, and that is true.
So, Mr. Chairman, my time has long expired, but could I please be recognized for unanimous consent? Well, so my unanimous consent, I ask that an article dated 2 days ago entitled 10,000 Migrants Apprehended 1 Week in Arizona Border Sector be admitted into the record, as well as another piece called, from 3 days ago, called Apprehensions and Rescues Increase in Border Patrol Tucson Sector. As well as, I think I'll just stay there for now. I'd ask that it be admitted to the record.
So ordered. Congressman Timmons.